That means it's time to talk with me, Jen Graziano. I'm a licensed funeral director who runs my family's funeral homes, Coxe Graziano of both Mamaroneck and Greenwich, and the Zion Memorial Chapel of Westchester. Every Monday, I come to you discussing important topics and sensitive matters that all of us need to pause and reflect upon at some point, and through this show, I hope to provide a platform to do so. If you're joining us this morning on 1460 WVOX, a Whitney Global Media station, we will take your questions, comments, and calls to 914-636-0110. And good morning to our Facebook Live viewers with Tim Judge behind the camera. And you can also check Tim out at GreenwichLocal.com, an interesting website for sure. So I am joined this morning by my friend, my colleague, my former teacher, Terri Agliardo from the Ursuline School, who is also the in-house bereavement counselor at Coxe Graziano and has run a program with us for nearly 2 decades. We strongly, and Terri's been instrumental for so many who have traveled the road of grief, which is a journey that everyone must take at some point, whether or not you choose to sweep it under the rug. It's something that catches up with you, and Terri has really developed constructive ways to help, and we're going to talk to her this morning about the subject of grief and also an upcoming event that we're really, we are excited to put it on, although it's a heavy subject, because we really think there's going to be some healing benefits, strong healing benefits for many. So welcome, Terri.
Good morning, Jen, and thank you very much for having me back. This is one of the things that I truly enjoy doing, is being on the radio with you so that we can reach out to those who haven't reached out to you or to me for help, so that in the interview, I hope that people will hear something that they may need to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once again, we remind everybody that you do have a long tenure of the Ursuline School, and that's where I met you many years ago. And we want to also shout out to Dr. Melnick, who was on the morning show this morning with Dennis.
Yes.
A proud koala morning we have here down at the station. So, and hopefully my daughter following suit on that. You have to stay in Ursuline until she's a senior. So
I promise.
I know you will. Terri, there's so many questions that surround grief. There's so many. What if Dennis actually raised a question this morning on the morning show saying, do people ever come back a year later? And, I actually advocate that sometimes some distance in between is better, because when a family comes into me, they haven't even scratched the surface to process that loss. The immediacy of death is busy work. It's planning, it's doing. And my dad always said the hardest part is the day after the funeral. What the hell just happened here? So let's talk about the ideal time, if any, for grief work to begin.
When it's a tragic death, it is important in the first 48 hours to have connection with the family, because that's when you can do a lot of unpacking for the family in the first 48 hours, because they're in shock. And then you have to let it be until it all settles in. With loss that occurs because the person was ill and you had a period of time, usually a month, 2 months is a good time for them to seek help through a bereavement group. There are some people who had been in our previous bereavement groups at Coxe Graziano who had come for one issue, say the loss of a father, and then 2 years later came back because of a loss of a mother and a sister. And that has happened. So people come back knowing what the experience had been and need the additional support of the group. Because one of the things group does is it allows you to be with other people who are on the same journey, and you don't feel that isolation or that experience of, I am going through this alone. You need the support of other people, and it is extremely beneficial to be with other people, because a loss is a loss is a loss, and one is not greater than the other. It is whatever the individual is experiencing at the moment, that is the profound loss for them.
Well, I think you also touched on something else too, how people come in for one loss and then successive losses occur of different relationships. And I think that that's significant as well, because grief is so unique. And, what you feel is so closely intertwined to the person you passed and what your individual relationship with them is. It's not just someone died, I'm sad. That has nothing to do with it, actually. There's a profound, deep set of emotions that are tied to every respective person in your life. There are unresolved issues. There are, again, the nature of death, tragic death versus preemptive grief when you're watching someone die. And they all have a different set of rules and strategy following. So it makes a lot of sense that people would come back for different losses, because just because you may have climbed one mountain, you're back at the bottom when the next loss occurs, and you have to walk down that road again or walk up that hill. So I think you touched on something very important there.
I think what happens is, once people experience group, they know it's there and know that if they have subsequent losses, because it's been positive, they know what to expect. I think the reluctance to come to group is because you don't know what it's like.
It's very true. And it's that fear factor on the first time.
Correct.
People will always say, you and I get this question commonly when we let people know that it's there. They're afraid of sharing. Do I have to speak? Do I have to say anything? They think it's one of the, my name is Jennifer and I have a problem. It's not like that. And until you take the step to come, I mean, you can't just take my word for it. You have to actually come and witness it. But it's so transformative for so many people because it's an open forum to share. You don't have to share a thing.
Correct.
Most likely, more likely than not, you eventually will, maybe not your first time. And something else that came up this morning in my discussion with Dennis, when I was telling him about your work in the group, is that, as we are saying, every relationship is different. And I experience myself this right now. What my dad goes through is very different than what I go through. And he will not share with me things that he goes through because he doesn't want to burden his children. And it's something that his children wouldn't understand. And conversely, what we go through losing our mom is something very different than he can understand. In the group, when you tend to have widows and widowers, they can share sometimes with each other more easily than they can share with their own adult children.
That's right.
And parents as well. We have parents who have lost children in a group.
Basically, each relationship with the deceased is unique unto the survivor. Therefore, in a family, each of the family members is going to grieve differently depending upon the nature of the relationship. And you can't really help each other.
Right.
That's the difficult part, is you want to help each other, but you can't because you're going through your own grieving process. So people need to respect each other within a family context and seek the help that they need through a group, because it gives you the freedom to share with other people who are going through a similar experience. Your children, if it's a spouse, your children can't help you. They could do the day-to-day things for you, but deep down inside, they can't help you through the journey. You need to be with other widows and widowers who are grieving the loss of a spouse. And that is unique to them as we, as adult children, grieving the loss of a parent. And it's very, very different based upon the nature of the relationship.
It's very true. And we always say that if you don't deal with grief, grief will deal with you.
That's
and
right.
I think it's very true. I think many people have a propensity just to say, push it down, push it under the rug, keep going, keep moving forward. And then often there are triggering events that it could be 5 years down the road. There's no amount of time that could bring up all of those feelings. And similar to that point, I also don't think grief is finite. I don't think there's an end date on it. I don't think closure, people will say, I need closure. You're never going to get that.
No.
It doesn't exist.
You have to work through it. And there's no way of getting around grief. The only way you can handle grief is to work through it. It becomes less intense if you do the work. The work is tough. And everyone goes at it at his or her own pace. You cannot push it. You can only do it according to your own self. And you have to speak your own truth.
And we don't say that, as a message as a negative message that there's no closure. I think the message is that you do learn to live again, but you learn to live in the new world.
Right.
And there's always a scar there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wound that never heals because you'll never be okay living without the person that you love, but you acknowledge you have to live nonetheless. So closure is, I'll say acceptance is a better word.
Mm-hmm.
Or having the tools just to know that you'll be okay, but it's never going to be the same.
Nothing is ever the same. Your life is forever changed from the moment of the death of your loved one.
There's a before, that's it's so true, before and after.
And that is the hard part because all of us want that one moment in time to go back to when your mom was healthy or when that last conversation I had with my dad. You want that. You want that moment just to have another day. And you can't. And that you come to an acceptance of the fact that their body is forever gone, but the gift of their love to us lives on forever.
I think any profound loss also changes you as a person. And whereas there's that line of demarcation of who you were before you lost them and who you are after. And I think that that's an important part of grief work as well, recognizing you're not the same person.
That's right.
I think one of the things that tends to happen is there's a bitterness that can come. Maybe you see the world with more cynical lenses. Maybe you see the world with more realistic lenses. Maybe you've contemplated mortality as a real thing. No matter what, there's something about you that has changed. And I think a forum such as the one that you offer through the group allows people to also, there's a lot of introspection that happens with grief work. And you watch people go through this from your position, watching the many, many people that you've helped. How do they acknowledge the changes in themselves? Is that a big part of the discussion and what you talk about with them?
They recognize that they don't have patience for people who are complaining about the small stuff in life. They really want people to, get with the program.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have noticed is their frustration with people around them.
Yeah.
Who say to them, because they're not educated to say the right thing, they say stupid things like, when are you going to get over this? You don't ever get over it. It's not like having a cold. It's part of you forever. You learn in the passage and the grief work to integrate that profound, life-changing experience. You integrate it into who you are and who you're becoming. You are forever changed. I am not the same woman I was the day before my father died. I know I've changed, but I think I've also changed for the better. His passing has profoundly changed me, and I am less tolerant of nonsense.
Oh, so true. I actually, it's funny. I mean, I used to say my mother didn't have patience, and I would get upset with her for that. And I see the world so similar to her now. I only wish I could have seen it that way then. I'm a much less patient person now, which, probably not a good thing, but it just comes from there's no time for the fill in the blank on that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but I want to go. We have a lot of people listening, a lot of friends, and I want to say hello, Laura. Hello, Patty. Hello, my friend Amy. Toki Hall, good morning. And my good friend Lee, you've met Lee before in group, and she'd like to know how she can honor her daughter's birthday. Her daughter would have been 16 next. Wow, Lee.
Jeez.
Wow. She would have been 16 years old, and then she passed on an infant. Any ideas on how to memorialize her? And I think this is great for anybody out there watching and listening who has experienced that type of prenatal or postnatal loss, a very, very difficult subject for many. And the loss, sometimes it gets unrecognized because of the brief duration of the baby's life, but a very impactful, poignant loss nonetheless. Any helpful tips to Lee?
Hi, Lee. I would suggest that you talk to your children and ask them what way would they want to honor their sister, and how would they want to celebrate her birthday. It should come from all of you, that you pull all of your ideas together and put together something that would be meaningful. I would suggest that all of you write a letter to her. Attach it to a balloon, a Sweet 16 balloon, and let it go. It is an act of saying what they want to say to someone who came into the world before them, and now they can honor her in a very, very special way, and you can honor her as her mom in a very, very special way.
That's great, and that's going to get us to something that I want to bring up as well. Lee, stay tuned. You'll want to hear about this workshop. But we have Dan on the line. Good morning,
hi,
Dan.
Good morning. Good morning, Jen. Good morning.
Thank you for your call, Dan. What's on your mind?
Well, it's a very interesting conversation you're having, and I wanted to just hit on a couple of points.
Sure.
About grieving and the loss of a loved one. That I'm a 9/11 family member. As Dennis knows, I'm on the show on WVOX every now and then.
And my condolences to you, Dan.
Oh, thank you. And what you said, it's something that you learn to live with. And my situation was, the unfortunate situation of my family member being my twin brother, a New York City police officer, being killed in a rescue at the World Trade Center. And that immediately the New York City Police Department stepped in, concerns of police survivors, and I've had a lot of support. And throughout the time that it took to recover his body, 7 months that I was down there, and I think I've learned something with it. My parents, my mother at the time had hepatitis C, and I ended up moving her 13 times by ambulance for blood transfusions, and then I took care of my father. And after all that was done, by the time I got to my father, I couldn't even talk. And it's something that you learn, as you said, that you learn to live with, the small things, and that everybody has their own path. One of the things that I did is I volunteered at Calvary Hospital
Oh, wow.
for
God
5
bless
years.
you.
You get a perspective there, and there's a lot of grieving. There's a lot of material on this that no one ever talks about. I'm sure both of you know about Kubler-Ross.
Yes.
The stages of bargaining, and it is very, it's a pretty complete body of where you get to. But like you said, the word closure doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that the word still, that it's an oxymoron, that people say what you said before, that's still going on. It denotes it's a length of time, and it also means to stop. So the word still to me has kind of become an oxymoron. So that this is something that I live with, and the grieving process, it doesn't end. It morphs into other types of emotions, what you can do. One of the things that I like doing is I go over to my parents' grave and I walk on it barefoot in the summertime. And it's kind of a cathartic thing to do, but there's a lot that can be done. And the police department, the Concerns of Police Survivors, COPS, sends out a 10-paragraph, you have the right to grieve, the 10 Commandments of Grieving, that you maintain ritual. Of course, religion and palliative care is very important in the bereft. And as I said before, it's something that you learn to live with. And I know that you have an audience here that you followed up Dennis's show, and I know there are a lot of widows and widowers that have kind of bonded the same way under the Dennis umbrella, as I call it. And, it's almost like a therapy session, with the music and everybody going out. And for a minute, you get to have a good time. But anyway, I've heard you before on the radio. Of all things, I'm calling for this, but my experience at Calvary Hospital was kind of what prompted me to call you, and that there is a large body of work out there about grieving and the steps that's necessary to take in healing, if you can call it healing. Well, it's the new normal.
Agreed, and I thank you for sharing that. You really shared some difficult things. I credit you on your ability to transform your own pain into giving back, and I think you shared some great.
But you guys understand this, this is something that nobody talks about until it actually happens.
Well, that's very true. We invite you to join us. Terry's going to talk a bit about, as our time's coming to a close, we are doing a workshop on February 12th, and this coincides with what you just suggested to Lee. We invite everyone in the community to come. If you're up in Connecticut, it's Saturday, February 12th from 10 to 12 in Connecticut, from 1 to 3 in Mamaroneck. The season of love is beautiful coming up in February, but it's also difficult if someone you love is not there. So, Terry, you're going to walk us through the process of journal writing and get us to all write a letter to those we love. Tell us a bit about it, Terry. We have about 2 minutes left.
The Letters of Love is a transformative experience. Basically, it is an opportunity for people to gather together, to talk, and to have a tangible experience of either writing a letter to themselves about what their grief experiences has been, or writing a letter to a loved one that has died, and there are things that you may have wanted to say but didn't have the opportunity to say. Or it can be just writing your thoughts down. We don't usually do that. We don't usually take time to sit back and say, what have I been experiencing? What has my life been like since this happened?
That's very true.
Also to be able to have it and then continue the practice. And it helps you to keep moving forward in your journey of grief by journaling that experience, so that it's only for your own eyes. The letter is only for your own eyes, and it's a way in which you can take your pain, take it out from yourself, and to put it on paper. And this way it's released. You're not carrying it with you. It's now been released through paper and pen. And sometimes that's just what people need, just to get it out. They can't verbalize it yet, but they can put it on paper and pen. And it is so, so healing.
That's what we're hoping. And once again, everyone's invited to join us Saturday, February 12th. If you're in Westchester, it's 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. If you are closer to Greenwich, it's 10 a.m. to noon. Letters of love. Come learn the art of journaling. This is very cathartic. And we really hope that this is going to be a great community resource to help. Learn more about Terri and the services she offers on our website, www.coxegraziano.com. Free bereavement support is available to anyone in the community, and we invite you to take advantage of that. Terri, once again, deal with grief before it deals with you is the final message, but I really thank you for all that you do. Everyone loves you, and you're so helpful. So happy to have you continue to stay on board with us.
Thank you.
This is Jen Graziano. Thank you for taking the time to listen today as we took the time to talk. Have a great day, Westchester. Bye-bye.